Well, welcome to today's webinar, Church360 Unite, Custom Styles, Presets, and Themes. My name is Peter Frank, and I will be leading the webinar today. I'm the Senior Manager at Concordia Technology Solutions. You can see my contact information on the screen. I always enjoy when people reach out to me with questions or ideas or just share how they're using Church360 Unite. It's always fun to see the websites that are out there. So if you ever need to get in touch with me, drop me an email. You can call my office phone. I tend to be around the building quite a bit, so I'm not always there. So email is often the best way to get a hold of me. And then you've got our 800 number down there that you can call in and get with and have a conversation with any of our technology consultants, so they'll be able to help you too. But that's how you can get a hold of me. We've got a great presentation today, but before we begin that, a few housekeeping items. First off, I've allowed about 45 minutes for presentation. This is my first and only time doing the presentation, so I'm hoping it'll be right around 45 minutes. It may be a little bit short. Probably not. If anything, I'll probably go a little bit over that because we do have a lot to cover today. After that, we will have about 15 minutes for question and answers. While we are talking, or while I'm talking, go ahead and submit your questions, because while I won't answer them throughout, you can ask them and kind of get them off the top of your head and put them in there, put them in the queue to be answered during those 15 minutes, and there's a good chance I may answer it as part of the outline, but it's always best to just get it in there. If I don't get through all the questions in those last 15 minutes, I will respond over email. So please don't think that if I don't get to it, you won't get your answer. Lastly, we will be recording this webinar, or I should say we are recording this webinar, so it will be shared after the fact. I'll get an email out later today or tomorrow with a link to the recording so that you can watch it again or share it with somebody else at your church. I know sometimes I can go a little bit fast. I've been told that before, so if I go too fast and you want to hear me repeat it, the webinar recording is going to be the best way to do that. Let me go through the training outline for today. We are going to first talk about the new designer role. That's an additional role that is not defined by what plan you're on. If you are familiar with the Unite plans, the administrator roles are limited based on what plan you have subscribed to, and so you may only have 2 administrators, you may have 6, or you may have unlimited. The administrators have typically been the ones who can manage the site, and that caused some problems. So we'll get into that. I don't need to jump ahead of the game here. We'll talk about the designer role and how and when to use that. Then we're going to look at the preset updates. And preset is a phrase that we use in terms of theme styles and colors and other things like that. So we'll take a look at that. Then we're going to look at 2 new themes. I'm really excited about these themes. They've been released for a little while now. We haven't done a big announcement because we were waiting to do this training, and my schedule didn't allow it till now. So we'll show those off, but they are available for you to use today. We'll look at custom styles, which is another thing that we released a little while ago, but we've had a number of questions, and we want to get some feedback on that as we've been tweaking it and making some adjustments. And so this is a good time now. We're in a good place where we can show it off and see how to take it to the next level. Lastly, we're going to go through question and answers. Like I mentioned, that's about 15 minutes. Now, I know I titled the presentation Custom Styles, Presets, and Themes. I'm going to go kind of out of order there, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and get started. First off, the designer role. So you've got that paintbrush. That's kind of what I envision when I think of the designer role, because it's really about applying styles. More than anything else. The content, obviously, is the key part of the website. That's the part where it needs to be maintained, where the church office is the one who knows best on what goes onto the website versus what goes into the bulletin or the newsletter, both places. But the style, the theme, the colors, the font choices, all of that should be set up first, and it can be updated later on, but it doesn't need to regularly be maintained once you have a style that you want. So we've created a new role called designer. We'll look at that in just a second. I'll show you how to get started with that. But the designer can access pages and posts, overview, activities, and themes. Those are the main sections. And that allows the designer to really make the site look good. The activities are in there so that they can see things related to posts and other updates. And then the theme is the main part of that, and we'll look at that in just a second. Now, I do want to explain that the designer cannot access settings or users or groups. So we built this with the idea that let's say the church office manager is the person who has purchased Church360 Unite. They're the ones that regularly maintains it. They probably don't have web design skills. And if you're an office manager with web design skills who's watching this, please let me know. I'd love to hear that. We have found that typically that's not the case. Often they'll have some print design skills, but not often web design skills. And so if the church is blessed to have somebody in their congregation who is a web designer or a graphic designer, they'll often recruit that person to assist with designing and making the look of the site look good. However, that person doesn't need to get into the settings or get into the users. They don't need to have access to all of that contact information, and they certainly don't need access to groups, especially private groups, where there might be sensitive information shared. And that's what an administrator can have. And so that's why that didn't fit for all situations or for many situations. So I'm going to switch over to my screen. This is my training site. And I'm just going to log in real quick as an administrator. So you'll see when I log in as an administrator, I'll zoom in a little bit just so you can see a little bit better. I know that sometimes on these presentations it's hard to see the text on the screen. We've got our administrator bar up at the top, and we've got these 6 sections: pages, posts, activities, users, themes, and settings. Well, settings, those are the things you set up at the beginning. You don't really touch them very frequently from there. Users are the important place. That's where you can invite people to the site, where you can change what access they have. It's also where mailing lists are, so you can have mass communication to everybody. And that's a sensitive information. You don't want to give, let's say, a teenager who knows some web design access to communicate with the entire church. Also, the administrator, like I mentioned before, can visit and log into all the groups so they can manage it. And that's things that will often contain sensitive information, meeting notes, or minutes from like the Board of Elders. So what you can do is you can set up a new user, and the way to change a user's role, so we'll just go Dave Abbott. We pick on Dave Abbott quite a bit, our fictional church here. You can click the checkbox next to a person and go to change role and select designer. And you'll see the difference there. So there's no access or user, which means they can log into Unite and see the private pages, but really don't see anything that's not meant for the church members. You have a publisher who can edit the content, but they can't do anything with the theme. They can't do anything with the design. And that's appropriate. That would be somebody like a ministry leader or a volunteer who you want to have update the site, but you don't want them to change the look and feel. So the designer fits right in between publisher and administrator, where they've got more access than the publisher because they can modify the look and feel, but not as much as the administrator, where they can manage the people. So after you do that, you just hit update, and now that person has become a designer. And for those of you who may not know how to sort through and look at the rows, you just click on roles and it'll sort through. And the nones kind of get mixed into the middle there because it's alphabetical, but you can see all the designers. So I created one before earlier today called Daniel Designer. So we're going to log out and log in as him. So I'm going to sign out and then go back here and sign in. And just so that you can see it, get a feel for it. So there at the top, you've only got those 4 sections: pages, posts, activity, and themes. But within themes, you have everything that you would need. And that's where we're really headed next. So if you have any questions about the designer role, please go ahead and submit it into the chat, and I'll take a look at that later on during our Q&A time. But for now, we're going to move into the next part. Presets. Presets are fun. Presets are almost like completely different sites. Now, we've had 10 themes, and we're up to 12 now. We'll talk about those 2 new ones. And while that may not seem like a large number, it's actually much more than 12 options, because within each theme, you have upwards of 10 or more. And 10 or more presets. Presets are collections of colors and images and fonts. So what we have done, we've done a thorough review. It's been a little while since we had done that. And so we had a number of designers go through and add some new options to our presets. And that included removing some of the less popular ones. We didn't want to clutter it up too much. And so we have many new options. In most cases, there's more options than before, a minimum of 10 per theme. So you can go through and review them, and we'll look at that in just a second. The one thing I want to caution you, though, that could be a little confusing is that you do need to upgrade the theme to access that. And if you see on here, there's a little button next to the presets that says either downgrade or upgrade, and then the theme name. And that's because as we make changes to the theme, we don't want it to automatically affect your site. And so we have these different stages where you have kind of an older theme and then the newer theme. You have to upgrade your theme to get the latest. And presets is part of that, the latest features. We also have a new way to preview them, so you can click and hold. And that was one of the things that was a little bit confusing before, because you'd have to select it and then it'd apply it and you'd lose some of your customizations. Now you can preview it without doing anything to your current site. So let's go back to Unite. Whoops. And I'll show you what it means. So we used to have under Customize a drop down where you could pick the different presets. That's gone because now under Themes Browse you can see all of the different themes, and then as you click on them you can see the different options. Now here's presets for earth tones. You see there's only 6 of them there. When we go to upgrade it, now you've got a lot more. And what is that? That looks like 15 options. So it's hard to see. Those are pretty small images. So hover over one of them, click and hold, and you'll see that kind of ramp up and then display. And these are all predefined images based on the preset, so it's not a live version of your site. We use this template that we have, one of our more popular themes, or popular examples of a theme has this image, so we went with that. But you can go to any one of them, click and hold, and then see what it looks like. And you can just review through them. So every time you see where you need to upgrade, you can go ahead and upgrade it and see those different options, click and hold, and view it. And there's some really good ones in there. And now I can say that because I didn't do any of them myself. So I'm not, it's not like a humble brag or anything like that. So we'll go in here. In this case, module was already upgraded. So you can see if you want to go with those fall colors. I know orange is one of the ones I always like. We use that for our example. So that's how you go through and find a new preset, and you can preview these different options and pick and choose what you want. And of course, after you select one of them, it's completely customizable. So let's go here. We'll choose this one, Slate Blue. Actually, no, that's one of the older ones. We'll upgrade Urban and see what else is new there. Here we go. Yeah, that looks good. So we'll go ahead and apply that theme now. And from here, then, you can go and customize it, change some of the things you'd like. And as I X out of here, you'll see it's already been updated. So if you would like to change the look and feel of your site, you can do that now. We're going to go ahead and apply back onto our old theme. All right, if you have any questions about presets, please go ahead and submit those at this time. That's a pretty simple change. Really, it just requires you to browse through and see what all we have in there. And that's, I'm not going to show them all off today because I don't have enough time for that. But let's go back here and talk about our new themes. All right. Every few months or so, about 6 months or so, we've been adding a couple themes, and we're always looking at new ones. We're taking feedback from our current users and hearing what kind of options they're wanting that we don't have right now. And so the first new theme I'd like to introduce you to is called Material. And Material sounds like kind of a weird word for a theme, but it's actually based on something outside of Unite entirely. So a little while back, I think probably about 2 years ago, maybe 3, Google actually released what they call their material design. And it's kind of sort of a philosophy, more of an example of how to design for Android devices. So there, I should have showed that first so you can see it. That's what our example site looks like for material. It's a nice and clean site. It's simple. It's all of the colors are up in the top under the navigation bar, and the rest of it's very clean and crisp. It's I like all of our themes. It's mobile optimized, but especially the material one was thought of from a mobile perspective because it is following the Google material design. And I'm going to switch over real quick to show you that. I've got that pulled up here. Google put out here a complete site about how you can use material design. Now, I don't expect you to go out there. This is what we expected our theme designer to do, and he did a fantastic job of going and seeing this. A lot of this applies to app development. So it doesn't apply to Unite because it's not, your website's not an app. But a lot of the color choices are similar. The font choices and some of the presets fit in. You can just see all sorts of great examples here of how to use it. And if you have an Android device, you'll recognize much of this because of how Google has rolled this out into their apps. If you're using something like an Apple device, I apologize. I'm very much a fan of Android. But the theme itself doesn't matter whether you're using Apple or Android, you can still access it, and we'll go ahead and show an example. You can access this example yourself at material.360unite.com, and we'll pull that up, and so you can see that right there. You've got the opportunity to put a logo or just text at the top. As you scroll through, this navigation sticks at the top, which is really nice. We've got a fairly short page here. But you can see some of it's the image choice, but the rest of it is just the theme itself makes it a nice, light, welcoming feel to it. As you go through the navigation, that works well. You've got the search at the top that can appear that way, or the click can appear for sign in. Now, let me show you what it looks like on a mobile device. And I'm going to change my screen to go to mobile, and I think I can zoom in a little bit more. So you see, when you go to mobile, your images will shrink down if you put them at the 100% width, and it'll work real well for mobile devices, and it shrinks down and you can scroll through it. And as you scroll through it, you get your logo still at the top. A little arrow appears to take you back up, and your hamburger menu over on the left hand side, which displays your navigation. So it's a really nice looking mobile experience that has very little effort on your part at all to get it to look like that, because the theme does that for you. So I will go back out of the mobile view, I think. There we go. So again, you can access this at material.360unite.com and take a look for yourself. I'm going to switch back here and I'll show you a few of the examples. So if you go here to materials, see, this is the one that I use, the blue, grays, and browns. That's one I used for the example site, but there's plenty of other ones. I know blue is a very common one, at least within the material design. Purple will be coming up on Lent in a very short time, a little over 3 months or so. And you can just go through and see those, and you can apply those today. Let me go ahead and apply this one, and I'll show you some of the custom settings, how you can customize this. Oops. Let me go ahead. I think I know what happened. When I go on too many different sites on Unite, I need to sign back in again, because in the same browser window, it will not recognize that. So let's go ahead and sign in. It's usually only an issue that we here at Concordia deal with, because we're usually the ones that are in multiple sites. For all of our churches who are using it, they only have one site. Alright, let me go back in and I'll apply that theme, and then I'll go over here to customize. There we go. And so you can see the different options. There's if you just leave it to be text, but you can upload a banner or a logo there. You can kind of just go top down. The header color, the navigation color, the sidebar color, or sidebar border, sidebar color, all the way down to the font. And Roboto is a font that Google recommends, but you have other options there too. And we'll look at that in just a little bit. Okay, so that is the material theme. Let's go to the next one. The next new theme we have, our first two-worded name theme is called the Wonderful Cross. And you'll see why, because every part of it has a cross in as the example. Now that doesn't mean you have to go with a cross image, but this is our example site. We'll take a look at that in a bit more detail. The Wonderful Cross theme has what we call a hero image. I don't know if you've heard that phrase before. It's kind of common in web design, not so much common outside of web design, but it just means that this image is like the hero of the site, the main attention, and so it goes all the way across. The other presets have big, bold colors like this purple here you can see at the end, and we went with that kind of idea for the tinting and all the colors. It, of course, is also mobile optimized like all of our sites. And you can find an example at wonderfulcross.360unite.com. So we'll jump over to that. Take a look here. You see the image goes all the way across. It's the wide view. And then as you go down, you've got the white bar across and then the complete bar at the bottom. This is kind of a similar theme to what you'll see. It's very popular right now. This is our version of it that's a little bit different. You'll notice that as you scroll down, you get the title of your church, the name of your church, and just text across the top. And your menu becomes a drop-down or a click to then get to the drop-down menu there. So it's a little bit different than some of our other themes. It's a nice experience. Again, that sticky navigation always stays at the top. And then you've got the drop-down for the sign-in and the display for the search. So let's take a look at what it looks like on a mobile device. There you go. So as you go through, in this case, it will reduce everything down and show your logo there. And it'll kind of have this transparency through there so you can see your site. You still have that hamburger navigation up at the top to get your menu. And as you scroll down, you're always going to hit the arrow to get back up to the top. So a really nice experience. Again, very minimal effort on your part. That hero image shrinks down, but it still looks really good because it's showing the center there. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at some of these options. I'll go ahead and sign out of here and sign back in, just because I know we have some of those options, or some of those problems here as we go back and forth between them. So go to Themes, go to Wonderful Cross, and you don't have to upgrade this one because that's all there is, and there you'll notice that theme of crosses throughout. And these are just example images that you can use. You can upload your own image, and it gives you the dimensions, 1600 by 640 pixels. So you don't have to go with the cross. You could go with a big photo of your church from the outside or from the inside. Those always look nice too. You have the option to put your logo in the center, or you can just go with text. And it really can create and dictate the feel of your site. You can see it's not quite black and white image, but black and white colors that are going, and it really changes the difference. I picked this one just because I thought the image itself is so bold and dynamic. And you're welcome to use that too. You can go with a very simple kind of flat approach with just that cross in the very center, and there's a lot of different ways to use that. So I don't know if you can tell, I'm excited about this theme. I think it looks really good. We'll go ahead and we'll apply this theme here. We'll go to Customize, and you can, whoops, let me do a quick refresh because I think I had that same issue. Let me go ahead and I'll apply that theme. There we go. Customize. So there you can see there's the background, there's the banner, so if you want to put a logo there or some other kind of image. And then those are the different color options that you have, the footer color, the heading color, link color, all of that is there within the Customize. So that is our second new theme. I'm excited to see how many people use it. I've seen a few people have already jumped on board with it. They probably saw our blog post about it. So let's go back here. Let's talk about the next section now. Now, everything we do is based off of user feedback, and I'm sure as many of you know, you can submit feedback at any time. I'm going to jump back to show you that. Here in that little I button in the lower right corner, you can go and click send us a message, send it to our support team. As soon as we hear feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, they put it in our feedback system, and that gets relayed out to every member of our team immediately. And so throughout the day, we'll see these little notifications and other feedback is in there. And we read those. Our developers or programmers read that. So it's a great way to just kind of stay in touch with our customers. Even if each of us individually is not talking to a church member or a church office worker, we can still see all that feedback. So we heard a number of things from the feedback. First off, and very frequently, we heard that people wanted more font choices. That's been an ongoing thing, and there's some difficulties with that made it a bigger project to address, but we have done that, so I'll walk through that process. We also heard about having some more consistency, and as people are looking at their sites, they're seeing that it just, from page to page, changed from how it looked, and we noticed that as well. And so we've done some things to help improve that consistency. And then going back to what we were talking about before, the ability to add or update styles without adjusting theme files. So part of it is giving somebody else the access to adjust it without having it to be an administrator. But more than that, how do we update the website without knowing HTML or without modifying the themes? So if we at CTS update the theme, doesn't interfere with any customizations you've done. So we've done a number of things there to allow you to add code to the top or the bottom of the page without going into the theme files. But styles is really a key thing that we've never had before. If you wanted to change how a header looked, you didn't have that option. Now you do. Let's talk about that first one, more fonts. Well, since we launched Unite, we've always made available the web-safe fonts. And web-safe fonts are kind of boring. You see, the information I'm getting is coming from MIT, so it tells you that's a little bit technical. Well, there's certain fonts that are most safe to use, and that's things like Arial or Helvetica, Times New Roman, Courier New. Those are fonts that every single computer, whether you're a Windows or a Mac, you have access to it. And that's what's unique about web fonts, is that on your computer you have a lot of fonts that are available to you. But because not every computer has that, they are not considered web-safe fonts. So Windows will put out a number of fonts, like their standard now Calibri. That's not available on a Mac. But the web-safe ones are the ones that are available on just all computers. So those are the three main ones. Other options that usually work cross-platform are Palatino, Garamond, and Bookman. Those all kind of look a lot alike. They're serif fonts. Fonts that work on Windows and Macs but not Unix are these like Verdana, Georgia, the sometimes dreaded, sometimes beloved Comic Sans, Trebuchet, Arial Black, the big thick version of Arial, and then Impact. So you'll notice that we previously offered that. Well, anymore, as you're browsing the internet, you've probably seen fonts that are not these. They're all going to be something like a sans serif or a serif. Sometimes you'll get a script in there. But these are kind of overused because it's a small amount. Well, Google a number of years ago released Google Fonts. And Google Fonts, which are available at fonts.google.com, are a collection. They're up over 800 different fonts that are different than web ready. I won't say that they're web ready, but they are web fonts, which means that you can plug them into your site. And they are free to use because you're pulling them from Google. They're recognizable. They're very common now. This first one we see here, Roboto, that's common because that's their standard Android font. And so it's definitely something you can recognize if you recognize fonts. What's nice about them is that they don't require very much work if you are a web programmer or a web designer. If you know a little bit about code. If you don't know anything about code, it can seem overly complex. So our previous themes did offer some Google fonts, but they didn't have all of them, and they really were based on the theme. So what we went through what their most popular fonts were. And we picked about 75 of them. We didn't want to give all 800 options because it's really hard to sift through. Let me go show that. I've got that pulled up here. So Google Fonts, as you go through, you can see how many different options they have. And they give you categories, and you can say what's trending, what's popular, what's new, alphabetical. There you can say how many different styles within the font. There's all sorts of great things here. So we went through, and we actually went to this site that they don't really make readily visible, but it's their analytics page, and it shows how many font views there are. So they've got this calculator that just keeps adding up and adding up, and it can show you what the most popular fonts over any given period of time are. So by far, their most common one is Open Sans and then Roboto. In the last 7 days, those are very popular. Total views over time, Open Sans is winning. But you can go back a year, 90 days. You can see what browsers they're most used in. So interesting information, not necessary for you to learn or digest too much, but that's kind of what we went through. And so now we have given you access to a number of these Google fonts. It's somewhere, I don't know the exact number because we've added and changed it, somewhere between 75 and 100. We've applied that to styles. And that's where we're going to kind of wrap up the discussion these last 15 minutes or so. So styles is a new tab or a new section under the themes tab. We'll go look at that in a second. There are default styles, which you see there on the screen. That's heading 1, 2, 3, all the way down to 6, and then normal. And those have always been available for you to select in the theme. There's ways to do that. It hasn't always been this easy. We've given you the ability to add styles. And so you can add styles of any type to modify your text. And you can have multiple colors and multiple fonts. This allows you to kind of create this menu of style options for your users, your publishers, the people who are putting content on your site. You give them options now on what to use. They can't just pick and choose everything because that creates a lot of inconsistency. And so that's why we did this, is to put in the consistency. So we addressed the font issue, we addressed the consistency, and by adding into themes into this section, but not part of the advanced area, that makes it more accessible for everybody, regardless of your skill level. Now, one thing I do want to mention, you'll see this little kind of speedometer here, that you do want to limit how many different Google fonts you have on your site. And that's because every single time, every single font that you have is an additional callback to Google to say, hey, I'm borrowing this font for a little while. And if you have multiples, it starts to add up. So you can see here that there's the green and the yellow and the red. That'll change as you're adding styles because every time the page loads, it has to load all the available fonts. So that's just something to keep in mind. That doesn't mean you have to limit your number of styles, just the number of different fonts that you use. Because even if you have 6 styles all using the same font, that's just one call to Google, and it doesn't slow anything down. Now, it's kind of sensitive, meaning that if you get into the red, that doesn't mean your page is going to take minutes and minutes to load. But we as a culture now, as people who are used to things happening immediately, especially on phones, if you wait, your page takes more than a few milliseconds to load, people get impatient and hit the back button. And so this isn't going to drag and drag back like in the days of dial-up, but we're much more sensitive to speed nowadays, and so you want to be really careful with that. And then I'll let you know where you're at. If you have any questions about that, please go ahead and submit in the chat. I'll do my best to answer it. And if I can't, I'll reach out to a programmer after the webinar. Okay, so once you get into a style, and we'll look at this in more detail in just a moment, there you get to choose how it appears. And there's a lot of different options there, from font family to the style of that family to size, text decoration, color, even background color, margins and paddings and borders. So you choose a block or an inline style. I'll show what that means. Essentially, block is paragraph and inline is words. You can preview what it looks like, and that's what you see on the screen. You can also use inherit. And we'll look at that in a little bit more detail. I think this has caused some confusion for some people. Inherit means that it doesn't change anything. And so you'll always have your default headings and your paragraph, that the normal style. You can just make slight changes to that by keeping inherit for all the other things. So we'll look at that. That's how you'll change things like a specific color. Whoops, not too far. So I do want to clarify that one of the reasons why this took a while to release is because we wanted to make sure that releasing this didn't break anybody's sites. So we did a bunch of different tests on this, and if your site had different styles, it was created. So you may go in there and see a number of styles in there. That was to respect how your site currently looked and not change it automatically on you. And that's something that anytime we make updates, we are very, very sensitive to, is how will this affect the look and feel of existing sites. We don't want it to change anything. That's why you have to upgrade your themes. It doesn't do it automatically because we want you to opt into it. All right, let's go ahead and dig in here. We're going to go back, and I'm going to re-sign in as the administrator here. Just because I'm more comfortable with that. Make sure I have all the options in case I decide to jump around somewhere else. So we'll go up here to themes. And that's taking a little while today. There we go. All right, so we'll leave that there. We'll click on styles. And so you can see here is heading 1 all the way through to heading 6, then shrinks as a go, and then the normal style. When you click on it, it'll tell you those details. So you can now go in here. It used to be that you would only change it if it's available under Customize. Well, we removed all fonts from Customize. They're all here in Style. So the heading on this one, I'm not sure if I can pronounce that, Rocket, probably is how it is. You can see here all these available fonts, and it shows you what they look like, so you have kind of an idea. And so if you still want to go with some of the web-ready fonts that you have, like Arial, you can do that. We don't put all the web-ready fonts in there. We put the ones that are most popular because so many of them are so similar. But now if you want something like Dancing Script, that's great for Bible verses. You could go through, let's see some of the other ones. I know Meriwether is a very nice serif one. It's a little bit wider. I've used that before. You can go with a very thin font. There's lots of options for you there. So I'm going to go with Railway, and then I can change this to see all these different options. So they have like really thin all the way down to really thick, like heavy. And it's the same font, but it really changes the look and feel. And so even though this is limited to 75 or so, the options you have from here with the different font styles makes it that much greater, more exponential. So from there you go into font size, and we have what's called EMS. Now EMS is kind of a relative font size based on themes and other things. So it's not your typical 14 pixels or otherwise. The reason for that is for mobile devices, because as your screen changes, you want everything to be relative to the screen size. You don't want it to just disappear because it shrunk down so much. And so you can pick the M, and this just lets you preview that. And so that's a bit smaller. If we wanted to go larger, go up to 1.95, that looks pretty good. Text decorations, there's a few options of underline and line through, or none. In most cases, you probably go none. Color, you can go and click on the little box there and see all your different options. That should be very familiar to people. But now you can change that style. This is under the header 1. Background color. If you wanted to go with like a dark black background, it kind of looks a little bit silly, but I'm going to use that for an example in a second with the margins. You can do that, and it'll always show a background color. That was something you've never been able to do very well before. It would just show it on the text. This gives you that whole line. There's some great ways to use that. So margin, as you look at margin, it'll give you a preview of where the margins stop and end. And so you've got the top, right, bottom, left, and you can change change those. And if you want to indent something, I had questions about how you indent text. Well, that's how you do it in web design, is through margins. You also have padding. And so you can add padding into it, and that affects it kind of within it. So padding is kind of inside the box. Margin is outside the box. I don't know if that's a good explanation. It's hard to say with fonts, but you can see now that's how you would extend your background color. So margin goes outside that background color. Padding goes within it. And so if you wanted to create a little bit of additional space, you can create a nice looking thing here. Give a little bit of padding on the left-hand side. I don't know if I would say nice necessarily, but you could see the usefulness of this for section breaks on pages like your newsletter or other things. You can also do borders. Let's go ahead and take off this background color. Go back to white or just auto. Actually, that's not what I meant to do. There you go. So just white, and we'll remove some of this padding. You'll see it kind of groups together. That's because I've got the website zoomed in. So we'll take off that indent here. Now, if you wanted to do like a border, you could do a border for everything and make a box and make a solid line. That's kind of cool. Or maybe you don't want to do all of them. Maybe you just want to do the bottom. And where underline will underline the text, having a bottom border will go all the way across. And you can make it thicker. The underline just gives you one option. So you can have this cool little divider in there. And you could change the color on that if you wanted. You can see here that my color schemes are not necessarily the best in the world. That's why I had other designers work on it. But you'll see the difference between a border on that section than just an underline. Underline goes right by the text. You've got lots of great options there. I'm going to go ahead and cancel that because that's kind of where we're going to do a different example moving forward. But you can go into any one of these and that'll change what it looks like. So let's go here and we're going to go to what to expect. This is going to be our example here. I've got some text already in there. Now you'll want to make sure that when you're doing this that you have paragraphs rather than line breaks. And if you've used Microsoft Word or Outlook, any of the standard word processing type tools, you'll know that there's a difference between enter and shift enter. So enter creates a new paragraph and shift enter breaks the line. Now when you break the line, these two lines still share the same style. So that's just something to be aware of. So we're going to go ahead and do line break and show it this way. So first, what to expect. Now for search engine purposes, your big page title should be your header 1. So we'll go ahead and select that and go to styles and put header 1 on there. Then we'll go to family. These should all be your header 2 or header 3. For search engines, really header 2 should just be a subtitle. So like if you were saying what to expect at Cross Church, maybe. I can't type today. That would be a good, that would be a good header 2. That doesn't look good. We can adjust that accordingly. But that was what you use header 2 for. It's more of a subtitle. And that's what search engines are looking for. So we're going to go with the heading 3 here. And we'll go to each one. You don't even have to select it because it's based on the paragraph. You can just click in there and then add these styles. And we'll put down there, header 3. That's starting to look better. There's a lot of space. I kind of don't like how big that is. Let's go ahead and save this. The styles are applied. Let's go back up to themes and go to styles and go to headers. And you'll see here that you've got that extra space with 3. I'm going to drop this down a little bit to be 0.5. And then I'm going to change the font size down to 1.5. I'm going to make it bold. And we'll save that. And it's applying and updating the site. Now you'll see I made header 3 almost smaller than header 4. That's okay. These are labels. But then as I go in here, you'll see that I've changed it. It's not as big. There's not as much space on here. So I really adjusted it. Now we can go in and add our own styles, and that's what we're going to go to next. So we'll go to styles, click Add Style. And your first option is block or inline. So block, here's that sample text here. It's easier to see if you give it kind of a bright background color. We'll go back here to go to white on that. But you'll notice that it starts off with inherit. That means that everything's just the same as your normal one right now until you make those changes. Now inline, like I said before, inline is just words. So if you change the color, there is that sample text. You can identify how it looks there. This is where you might want to apply some style. So if you want to highlight something and maybe you've got, let's go blue, that's a little bit more noticeable. Let's go to more of a bright blue. There you go. If you just want to highlight this, you can call this style blue highlight. Actually, we'll call it blue text because we'll use highlight for background color. There you go. Applying the style. Now it's a style option here. I'm just going to add another one. Let's do this one that's actually highlight. Call that yellow highlight, and you can name them however you want. We're going to change this into more of a block, and we'll go with the yellow here. It's kind of a tea colored yellow. Close enough. There you go. Then you can save it in that way. So we'll say yellow highlight. Everything else stays the same. It's just that background color has changed. And now that's applied to the site. We'll close out of here. We'll go to edit the page. Confusing. We'll go to styles, and you'll see that it's separated. Oops. Separated between block and inline. So if we go to now the blue text, that inline style is there. If we wanted to highlight worship, you can go there, and that'll put it to the normal style. So, because that's going to go with the paragraph setting. So, oops, 3. So you've got some of that. Now to quickly access the styles from here, you don't have to do the navigation that I was doing. You can just click this little paintbrush and say, I want to apply this differently. So maybe this goes and becomes an inline one, and we just want to underline it and change that to the yellow text. It's going to be a little bit hard to read, but that's just for demonstration purposes. So then you can apply that and exit out. And so as you go in to see, you want to make sure you save your changes, because otherwise you will lose that. You can see that that can even be applied to the header font. It doesn't have to just be applied to the body font. So there's lots of great options for you. So you can have as many as you want here, but this just allows you to apply to some certain styles. So let's say, header 1, header 2, all of that has the specific HTML code associated with it. And maybe you just have a special page that you want to do something for. We'll cancel these changes. Go back to themes, go to styles. I'm going to add a new one called section header. This is going to be a block style. And I'm going to change the font on here. Let's do Lobster. Lobster is a kind of common one. I'm sure you've seen it around. And we're going to go and say, all right, inherit. No, we want it to be a little bit bigger. Maybe even bigger than that. Tuna. We want to give it some space. So we're going to increase the padding on the top and the bottom. And then I want to give it a bottom border line, just a bottom border, not all of it. And to be a solid line, you can do a dashed or otherwise. That kind of dotted doesn't look bad. Let's go with a blue for that color. Oops. Okay. Oh, I did it on the wrong one. That's why I wasn't working. There we go. You can see those blue lines there. And I want to do a little bit after that. So that's where margin comes into play. So you see with the border, that makes it really easy to tell the difference between whether you're going above or below the line. And then let's change the color. We'll go with a darker blue. Somebody who really understands color theory is probably having a hard time watching this right now, but that's okay. All right, so we'll go ahead and call that the section header. Now, you can see that option here. It shows it goes all the way across. When I go into this page, I go to Edit Page, I'll say, let's change this to my section header. And now I have that. I can apply that anywhere I want. And that's looking okay. Now, a theme designer, somebody on our side who's creating the theme, is probably never going to be so bold as to put these as one of the presets. So that we have to make it a little bit more generic because they are presets. But you at your church, who might have your own styles, your own branding, can go through and apply these that are even a little bit crazy sometimes. You don't want to go too crazy, but if you go consistently crazy, it looks okay, like this. This doesn't look too bad. So that is how styles work. There's a lot more that we can get into in terms of ideas, but that's the core functionality of that. And again, the administrators have access to this, and the designer roles have access to this too. So it's, the publishers, if you have somebody who you don't want messing with the style, but you do want edit content, put as a publisher. I will show here, you'll see that I have a number of different fonts already loaded in here. It does get a little bit slow, so that's just something to be careful. And if you're done using something, you can go through and we'll just delete this yellow highlight. And then it'll reload, and didn't actually have any fonts on that yellow highlight, so that's okay. All right. We are at about 10 minutes till I've already gone into my Q&A time a little bit. I don't have too many questions in the queue. So before we get into Q&A, let me show a couple things. First off, our product blog, Church360 Unite blog, will have the most recent updates. We try to limit it to things that are only applicable to current users. So if we go through a long period of time where we're working on a big project like this, you won't see too many updates, but that's okay. So to get to our blog, go to 360unite.com/blog and put in your contact information and subscribe to it. And this just tells us you really want to know when new things happen. We're going to post this webinar video up here, and so if you sign up today, you'll get a notification based on your preferences when that new post comes up. And we'll do, we've got lots of ideas of things that we can share on new training. Whenever we have training webinars, we try to put it up here. We're not always successful. Some of these things will just go out over email. But I encourage you to do that. Let me put up my contact information one more time, as well as our support team. And that way, if you have any questions that you want to reach out to us specifically about, you can. And I'm going to go ahead and take a look at our questions that are in the queue right now, and we'll answer them, and we'll go about the next 7-8 minutes or so. Okay, let's see, got a few in here. So the first one is from our friend Kim. Kim is asking, if you change the theme to a preset or any theme, and after working with that theme or congregation does not like, can you change back to your old one with no problems? Does everything go back to how it was before? It's a really good question, and something you do want to be careful with, because you can cause yourself some problems if you are not careful. So with themes, when you have one, it'll highlight what you currently have. And so I recommend saving as, and you can say my church theme. And that kind of locks everything down. Because if you're going with one of our current themes, you can apply changes through the customize, but it doesn't change one of our out-of-the-box themes. It's just applying those customizations to it. But if you go and you save it as your own, then you can get back to what you had before, so you can test out different themes. So you see nothing's changed yet, I just saved as, but if I go in here and I go to light, which is what we had originally, and close out there, we have that. That all looks a little goofy now. We can go back here to my church theme and apply it and get back to what we were looking at before. So that's how you would do that. But this is one of the reasons why we put in this preview here, so that when you go and you can get a better idea of what it would look like. So you could even give examples of it ahead of time. Now, if you really want to do a complete overhaul or test things out, kind of a playground, let us know. We can set you up with a trial account where you can do that, and you can play around to your heart's content without affecting your current site. That's something that we're happy to do to help you out, and we can just turn that off when you're done playing. That lets you test it out. So Kim had the second question as well. She said, can you change the color style without changing past use of the same style? Another good question that gets to a little bit of complication. So let me just read that one more time. Can you change the color of a style without changing past use of the same style? No. And that's kind of how the styles work, is that you apply a style to it, and you can apply a style across your site. And then when you want to change it, you can do it just from here, and it changes your entire site. And so that's where that consistency comes in. It really saves you a lot of time by not having to go page by page and update the styles, which is how it is right now. Now, if your site, or how it was before this, I should say, if your site has some custom styles applied to it, so if you went and changed some words to different background colors or different colors, that is in line, and that'll override the existing style. And so this is moving forward. As you're adding text, you could add that. So it just depends. If you change how header 1 looks, it will change all your past instances of header 1. But if you had previously gone and applied a style just to a word using the old tool, that should still be there. Just as a matter of how the style applied. So I hope that answers the question. It's kind of a case-by-case situation based on how your site is set up. And that's the thing with web design, is that there are rules, but they're so flexible that you can do the same thing, or at least make it look the same way by doing it 3 or 4 different ways. And depending on how you did it, it may react differently later on. So if you have any questions, I would suggest, like specifically, if I change this, will this change? Talk to our support team. They can look into it for you before they make that change. All right, so Frank asked, for users that don't want to define dozens of inline styles to get a wide color selection, would it be possible to restore the color selector button in the editor? And Frank, that's been a common request. We've had a number of different people ask for that. It's something that we're considering doing. We wanted to give it a little bit more time. It also will kind of affect how we roll this out, because if we allow that back in, then it'll go kind of to what I was just talking about, where it's kind of applied within that page. If you change the style here in styles, and like if you had header is one color, if the theme designer had it that way, and you changed it, the theme designer decided to go a different route, anything that you've applied within the page wouldn't change. And so you get this unexpected result. And so we're trying to figure out if there's an easy way to do it, if that's even necessary. We wondered too if part of it was just kind of a training issue on how to apply different colors. Now, based on your questions, you clearly understand how to apply it. It's just saying that that's a little bit of work. We understand that. So it's not a definite yes or no. It's something that we're considering, and I'll make sure to, since you asked, I'll apply this to our feedback as well so that the team can see that. So that is, again, still kind of in the air right now. But I would be curious if you don't mind sending me examples of where you'd like to use the different colors, because we often have people just wanting the option without an actual use case. But I know there's use cases out there, so the more we hear, there might be better ways of doing it, or maybe we preload some things or do it in a different way. So the more information we have, the better. So if you do have specific use cases, please go ahead and share that with us. Just send us a message. It's really valuable to hear directly from you how you're using it. The last question that I've got right now is from John. He says, how do you put a logo in the website header? Well, that's really dependent upon the theme. Some of the themes don't accept logos. Our newest 4 that we've had, the Light and Material and Module and Wonderful Cross, all do. And so if you select one, we'll just go to this one here. Yeah, we'll apply that. If you go here and then you go into Customize, it'll be where it says Banner. And that's been the consistent thing we use. We don't want to confuse people by making a logo seem different than a banner. So we'll put here, you click browse, and then you can upload it. This is probably not a great example. It's a picture, but you can see you can upload that picture there. Now, sometimes based on the size of your image, the shape of your image, it may appear smaller or larger than you want, or the placement may not be right, and we can assist you with that. That uses some of the advanced section here, where you can add custom headers and scripts. And our team, this is a great way to apply a change to your entire site without actually changing your theme. So to answer your question kind of more succinctly, it depends on what theme you're using, how you put a logo in it. But if your theme allows it, you can put the logo here under Customize and Banner. All right. Kim, you've asked a question. More so, I know the background to this. If you change the theme, will it mess up the Reformation page that we set up? It very much will. Not all of it will change, but because your theme is the customizations we added to that are based on your theme, it will change that. Now that doesn't mean we can't go and kind of modify it to go back to the way it was, but yeah, you'll definitely see some changes if you go ahead and change your theme. And so that's a good message to everybody who has kind of special pages that you want that consistency for, like a timed event. In this case, Reformation 500 events over the course of the next year. You want to be careful with that, and that's just kind of basic web design. You don't want to kind of pull the carpet out from your users when they're used to seeing it one way, and now it looks a different way. And so you don't really want to plan these changes. That's with the theme. Planning styles, no, that's okay. You can go ahead and edit that as long as you're not making drastic ones. Your visitors won't, hopefully won't notice, only if it's a negative change. And I'm sure if you're doing it here, it won't be a negative change. All right, well, that wraps up our questions and really our timing as well. We're right at 2:02, so I went a little bit over, and I can see my numbers have already dropped. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'll put my contact information on the screen one last time. I thank you for attending. I hope you got a lot out of this. We cover a lot of material, but if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me or our support team, and we are happy to help you out. So with that, thank you and have a great rest of the day. Bye.